So moving from, the continent as a whole to Ghana specifically,
Okay.
the paper gets really into the details about some of the unique challenges there.
Yeah.
One that stood out to me was the lack of data on poverty, especially in Muslim communities.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, right? Like, if you don't have accurate information, how are you supposed to target your interventions effectively?
It's a real catch-22. You need the data to understand the problem, but the lack of data makes it hard to even get that information.
Exactly. And then there's a whole concern surrounding zakat,
Okay.
which, for those who don't know, it's basically a form of almsgiving in Islam.
Right.
And the paper talks about how the lack of transparency and accountability in the collection and distribution of zakat can create distrust.
Yeah, transparency is crucial for building trust within the community.
Right.
And also making sure that the zakat funds are actually going where they're supposed to.
Yeah. And then on top of all that, you've got the pressure from secular NGOs.
Yeah.
They're all competing for the same limited resources.
So it's not just about collaborating with each other.
Yeah.
You've got this whole other layer of competition for funding and support.
Exactly. And of course, we can't forget about the environmental challenges in northern Ghana, like deforestation and unpredictable rainfall patterns.
Right. Those just make things so much harder.
Absolutely. And so, we've covered a lot here, and it seems like a pretty, overwhelming set of challenges.
Yeah, no kidding.
But the paper doesn't stop there. It goes on to look at collaboration and what role it plays.
Okay.
And that's where things get even more interesting.
All right, let's get into it.
So the paper acknowledges that collaboration between faith leaders, NGOs, and even government agencies, it can be really valuable.
Yeah.
But it also points out that it's not always a smooth process.
It's not just a magic solution, right?
No, definitely not. So it seems like collaboration is kind of a double-edged sword.
Okay.
On the one hand, it can bring together different perspectives and resources and expertise.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you have these potential power imbalances, conflicting agendas, even competition for resources. So it makes you wonder, is collaboration always the right answer?
It's a great question. And honestly, the paper doesn't try to give us all the answers.
Yeah.
It actually raises more questions than it answers.
Which I kind of appreciate.
Yeah, me too. It forces us to really think about the role of collaboration and acknowledge that it's not always a straightforward path to success.
Yeah, we need to move beyond those simple assumptions and really delve into the dynamics of how collaboration works, Look at the benefits, but also the potential pitfalls.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great place to pause for now. We've laid the groundwork, and in the next part, we can dive deeper into those complexities of collaboration.
That's good to me.
Look at what works, what doesn't, and maybe even explore what those calls for further research really mean, not just for northern Ghana, but for our understanding of, how faith leaders can help address poverty and social justice on a global scale.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, so picking up where we left off, I wanted to circle back to those calls for more research.
Yeah.
One thing that really struck me was it's not just about needing more data. It's about the type of data.
Okay.
The paper really emphasizes the need for research that combines those hard numbers with the actual lived experiences of people, both the faith leaders and the communities they're working with.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It's about going beyond just what's happening and digging into the why.
Yeah, that makes sense, because numbers can tell us how many people are struggling.
Right, exactly.
But to really get at the root causes of poverty, you need those personal stories. You need to understand the nuances of the situation.
Exactly. And I think that kind of in-depth research could be so valuable, not just for northern Ghana,
Right.
but for other regions facing similar challenges.
No, interesting. You're saying what works in Ghana could potentially offer insights for other parts of the world.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, think about it. You have communities struggling with poverty all over the globe.
Yeah.
And while the specific context might be different, there could be some underlying dynamics that are actually pretty universal.
That's a really interesting point. It speaks to the interconnectedness of all these issues, doesn't it?
It does. And it brings us back to this whole question of collaboration, which, as we know, is a key theme in the paper.
Okay.
One of the case studies that they highlight is this partnership between a faith-based organization and a local NGO. They teamed up to provide vocational training for young women.
Oh, wow.
And what's really cool is that they were able to leverage each other's strengths.
I see.
The NGO had the technical expertise, and the church had, these deep roots in the community, a lot of trust.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the program ended up being really successful. they were able to achieve way more together than they could have separately.
That's great. It's a perfect example of how collaboration can really work. But like the paper points out,
Right.
not all collaborations are that successful, are they?
Unfortunately, no. It's not just a matter of, like, throwing a bunch of different groups together and hoping for the best.
All right.
You need clear communication, shared goals, and a willingness to, navigate those power dynamics that inevitably come up.
Like a dance, almost, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need the right partners, you need to be in sync, and you got to know the steps.
That's a great analogy. It makes me think about the concerns around zakat that we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
If there was more transparency and collaboration in how those funds are managed, it seems like it could be a much more powerful tool for fighting poverty.
Totally. Transparency builds trust.
Mm-hmm.
And trust is essential for any kind of collaboration. If people believe that things are being done fairly and effectively, they're going to be way more likely to get involved.
It creates this, positive feedback loop, doesn't it?
Exactly. Transparency leads to trust, trust leads to collaboration, and collaboration leads to more impactful solutions.
I love that. So we've talked a lot about, the big picture stuff, the systemic challenges.
Right.
But this paper also made me think about what we can do as individuals.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
Because it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of these problems. Like, what can one person really do?
It's a valid question. But I actually think there's a lot we can do, even if it seems small.
Okay.
I think it starts with awareness.
Yeah, like educating ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Learn about the issues, learn about the organizations that are working to address them.
And once you're informed,
then you can make choices about how you want to get involved. Maybe it's donating to an organization, volunteering your time, or even just talking to your friends and family about these issues.
you're just spreading the word.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even those small actions can make a difference. It's about shifting from that feeling of, this is too big, I can't do anything, to, hey, I can actually contribute to positive change.
I love that. It's so empowering. And it reminds us that, this conversation isn't just about northern Ghana.
No.
It's about recognizing how interconnected these issues are and the role we all play in creating a more just and equitable world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whether we're supporting organizations, advocating for policy changes, or just making more conscious choices in our own lives, everything we do can have a ripple effect.
That's a great perspective. It makes me feel like we're not just passive observers. We can actually do something.
Exactly. But I get it. Even with the best intentions, it can feel overwhelming sometimes. There's so much going on in the world.
Yeah, it's true.
So as we head into the last part of our deep dive,
Okay.
what's one key takeaway that you'd want our listeners to really hold on to? What's that one nugget of wisdom they can carry with them even after this episode is over?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's this. Even with all the complexity, all the challenges, there's still hope.
Yeah, I agree.
We've talked about some pretty heavy stuff, right? Poverty, inequality, all these systemic problems.
Right.
But what's really struck me throughout this whole deep dive is just how resilient people are, especially those faith leaders, the ones working directly with communities.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it goes back to what we were just talking about, the power of individual action.
Exactly.
Problems are huge, obviously.
Yeah.
But our actions, even the small ones, they can actually make a difference.
Totally. And I think that's what I really want our listeners to take away from this.
Okay.
You don't have to have all the answers, right? You don't have to single-handedly solve global poverty.
Right.
Just start by engaging with these issues.
Uh-huh.
Learn about them. Find ways to support the work that's being done, whether it's in your own community or somewhere else in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe you're inspired to volunteer at a local organization or donate to a cause you care about.
Right.
Or even just start a conversation with your friends and family about these issues.
Yeah, just getting people talking about it is a great first step.
It's all about taking action, no matter how small, and realizing that you're not alone in this.
Yeah. There are so many people out there who are working towards the same goal, a more just and equitable world. Faith-based organizations, NGOs, governments, individuals, it's a whole network of people dedicated to making a difference.
And it's important to remember that change takes time, right?
Ooh,
it's a long process. There are going to be setbacks along the way.
For sure.
But if we stay informed, if we stay engaged, and if we support each other, we can actually create real, lasting change.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of faith leaders and poverty alleviation in northern Ghana, let me leave you with this. Every action counts. Keep learning, keep questioning, keep engaging. And never underestimate your own power to make a difference. Until next time, keep diving deep.